Move to the back where you belong. The flight attendant's voice cut through first class like a blade. Marcus Chen Williams, 17, clutched his boarding pass. Seat 2A. The Boeing 737 hummed with pre-flight energy. Passengers settled into leather seats worth more than most people's monthly rent. Marcus walked down the narrow aisle, his designer backpack drawing stares from every direction. Flight attendant Sarah Mitchell blocked his path. Her smile vanished the moment she saw him approaching first class. "Excuse me, young man. I think you're lost." Marcus held up his boarding pass. Seat 2A, first class, paid in full. Sarah's eyes narrowed. There must be some mistake. These black stories happen every day. Real-life stories that mirror the most touching stories we see in movies. But this one would be different. Have you ever been so certain someone didn't belong that you never questioned your own assumptions? 6:47 p.m. Minutes to takeoff. Sarah snatched the boarding pass from Marcus's hand. Her fingers traced the printed details like she was examining evidence at a crime scene. Other passengers craned their necks to watch the unfolding drama. "This documentation appears fraudulent," Sarah announced loudly enough for the entire cabin to hear. "Young man, I'm going to need you to return to economy class immediately." Marcus remained perfectly still. His voice carried the calm authority of someone twice his age. "Ma'am, that's a valid boarding pass. I purchased this seat with my own credit card." A woman in 1B pulled out her iPhone. The red recording light blinked to life. Sarah noticed and raised her voice even higher. "Sir, please don't make this more difficult than necessary. We have other passengers to consider." The expensive Patek Philippe watch on Marcus's wrist caught the cabin light. A graduation gift from his grandfather, it was worth more than Sarah's monthly salary. She didn't notice. She was too busy studying his face, searching for signs of deception that existed only in her imagination. Marcus pulled out his wallet to show additional ID. The black American Express Centurion card, one of only 17,000 in existence, was clearly visible. Sarah's eyes passed right over it. "I don't need to see anything else," she said. "These kids think they can scam their way into first class with fake documents." Dr. James Park, seated in 1A, cleared his throat. "Excuse me, miss. I saw this young man at the gate. He was clearly traveling first class." Sarah turned to him with a practiced smile. "Sir, I appreciate your concern. But airline policy requires us to verify suspicious boarding situations." "What exactly is suspicious?" Dr. Park asked. Sarah's pause lasted 3 seconds too long. The woman recording caught every moment of her hesitation. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. The screen briefly showed Dad. "Landing in 20 mins, see you at hotel." He silenced it immediately. 6:49 p.m. 10 minutes to take off. Gate supervisor Tom Jenkins appeared at the aircraft door. His uniform was wrinkled and his tie slightly askew. Sarah waved him over with obvious relief. "Tom, we have a situation. This young man is attempting to board with questionable documentation." Tom looked Marcus up and down. His assessment took exactly 2 seconds. "Son, you're going to need to step off the aircraft while we sort this out." "Sort what out exactly?" Marcus asked. "I have a valid ticket for seat 2A. I've shown my ID. What additional verification do you need?" "Don't get smart with me," Tom snapped. "We've dealt with ticket fraud before." The passenger in 1C, Emma Rodriguez, opened her Instagram app. She tapped the Go Live button and pointed her camera toward the confrontation. Her screen showed 47 viewers, then 126 likes, then 284. "This is Emma Rodriguez reporting live from Flight 447, she whispered to her phone. "We are witnessing what appears to be discrimination against a young black passenger in first class." The viewer count jumped to 847. Marcus pulled out a leather business card holder. It was monogrammed with his initials, MCW. He handed Tom a card, but Tom barely glanced at it before handing it back. "I'd like to file a formal complaint with your customer relations department," Marcus said calmly. Sarah laughed. "You can file whatever you want from the terminal." The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Flight attendants, please prepare for departure. We have a narrow window to maintain our slot time." Tom looked at his watch. "Captain, we have a brief passenger verification issue. Stand by." Marcus straightened his shoulders. At 6'2", he had the build of someone who played varsity basketball, but his demeanor remained completely calm. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "Before we continue," he said, "I'd like to document this interaction for my own records." He opened his camera app and began recording. Sarah immediately stepped back. "Sir, you cannot record airline personnel without permission." "Actually," Dr. Park interjected, "passengers have the right to record interactions with airline staff. It's been upheld in federal court." Emma's live stream now showed 1,247 viewers. Comments flooded her screen. "This is disgusting. Sue them. What airline is this? I'm screen recording this." Tom's radio crackled. "Ground control to Meridian 447. What's your departure status?" He keyed the mic. "Ground control, we have a brief passenger services issue. Request 5-minute delay." The cabin erupted in frustrated murmurs. Passengers checked their watches and phones. Someone in economy shouted, "What's the holdup?" Marcus looked at his own phone. The screen showed his father's contact, David Chen Williams, CEO. He hesitated for a moment, then looked up at Sarah and Tom. "I'm going to make one phone call," he said quietly. "Just one." Sarah crossed her arms. "You can call whoever you want from the terminal." Marcus's finger hovered over his father's contact. "I think you'll want me to make it from here." 6:52 p.m. Minus to takeoff. 2 airport security officers appeared at the aircraft door. Their presence immediately changed the atmosphere in first class. Passengers who had been merely curious now sat forward in their seats, sensing something significant was about to happen. Officer Martinez, a 15-year TSA veteran, surveyed the scene. "What's the situation here?" Tom Jenkins straightened his tie and adopted his most authoritative voice. "We have a passenger with questionable documentation attempting to board first class. The flight attendant has requested his removal for the safety and comfort of other passengers." Officer Martinez looked at Marcus. "Son, can you show me your boarding pass and ID?" Marcus calmly handed over both documents. Officer Martinez examined them under the cabin light, comparing the photo to Marcus's face. He checked the seat number twice. "These documents appear to be in order," Martinez said. Sarah stepped forward. "Officer, with respect, we've seen sophisticated fraud before. The printing quality, the way he's dressed, it doesn't add up." Emma Rodriguez adjusted her phone angle to capture the full scene. Her Instagram Live now showed 2,847 viewers. The comments section moved too fast to read individual messages, but the sentiment was clear. Viewers were outraged. A notification popped up on Emma's screen. "Your live video is trending in Los Angeles." Dr. Park stood up from his seat. "Officer, I'm a physician. I've been observing this entire interaction. This young man has been nothing but respectful. He's shown valid identification and a valid boarding pass. I see no reasonable grounds for removal." Tom's face reddened. "Sir, please remain seated. This doesn't concern you." "Discrimination concerns everyone," Dr. Park replied firmly. Marcus's phone buzzed again. This time he glanced at the screen long enough for others to see it. The text preview showed, "Dad, board meeting running late. Text me when you land." Officer Martinez noticed something else. "Son, is that an American Express Centurion card in your wallet?" Marcus nodded. Yes, sir. Those aren't easy to get, Martinez observed. Usually require significant income or assets. Sarah's confidence wavered for the first time. That could be fake too. Officer Martinez had been working airport security long enough to recognize genuine luxury items. The watch on Marcus's wrist was clearly authentic. His clothes were expensive but understated. His posture and speech patterns suggested private school education. 6:54 p.m. 5 minutes to takeoff. The second security officer, Johnson, had been quietly observing. Ma'am, what specifically made you suspicious of this passenger's documentation? Sarah's pause lasted too long. Well, the way it's unusual to see. She couldn't finish the sentence, not with phones recording and nearly 3,000 people watching live. Tom stepped in. Officers, we have procedures. When flight attendants have concerns about passenger verification, we support their professional judgment. Professional judgment based on what criteria? Dr. Park asked. The cabin fell silent except for the hum of the aircraft's auxiliary power unit. Marcus looked at his phone again. His father's contact information was clearly visible to anyone standing nearby. David Shenwilson, CEO, Meridian Airlines. Emma's live stream viewer count hit 4,200. Her phone was getting hot from the extended recording, but she didn't dare stop. Screenshots and screen recordings were flooding social media platforms. Twitter user @TravelJustice posted, "Live discrimination happening on @Meridian Air Flight 447. This is disgusting. Boycott Meridian." The tweet was retweeted 247 times in 2 minutes. Marcus made his decision. He unlocked his phone and scrolled to his father's contact. His thumb hovered over the call button. "Ma'am," he said to Sarah. "Sir," he nodded to Tom. "I'm going to make one phone call. When I finish, I believe this situation will be resolved." Tom laughed dismissively. "Kid, I don't care if you call the president. You're not flying first class today." Sarah nodded in agreement. "Make your call from the terminal." Marcus tapped his father's contact. The phone rang once. "Actually," Marcus said quietly, "I think you'll both want to hear this conversation." He tapped the speaker button. The phone rang a second time. Officer Martinez stepped closer. Something in Marcus's calm demeanor suggested this wasn't a desperate bluff. In his 15 years of security work, he'd learned to read people. This teenager was different. Emma's phone showed 5,847 viewers. The comments were a blur of outrage, support, and demands for justice. "Someone get this on TikTok. This kid's about to destroy them. Screen record everything. What's his name? That's a $50,000 0-cents watch." The aircraft's cabin lighting flickered as the auxiliary power unit cycled. Outside, ground crew members signaled impatiently. The departure slot was rapidly approaching. Third ring. Marcus looked directly at Sarah, then at Tom. "Before someone answers, I want to be very clear about something. This conversation is being recorded by multiple people. Whatever happens next will be public record." Fourth ring. Tom's radio crackled again. "Meridian 447 ground control. We need immediate departure status update. You're approaching slot time violation." Sarah's hands shook slightly as she adjusted her uniform. Something in Marcus's tone had shifted. The calm confidence was still there, but now it carried an undertone of authority that made her nervous. Fifth ring. Officer Martinez found himself genuinely curious about who this teenager was calling. The expensive watch, the Centurion card, the private school composure. Pieces of a puzzle that didn't match the discrimination narrative Sarah was pushing. Emma whispered into her phone. 6,000 people are watching this live. Whatever happens next, you're seeing it in real time. 6:55 p.m. -4 minutes to takeoff. The phone was answered on the 6th ring. Good evening, this is David Chen Williams. The voice was professional, authoritative, and carried the unmistakable tone of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected thousands of people. Sarah's face went pale. The name was familiar, but she couldn't immediately place it. Tom's expression changed. He definitely recognized the name. Marcus spoke clearly into the phone. "Hi, Dad. I'm having an issue with some Meridian Airlines staff. I'm on flight 447 to Denver, and there seems to be some confusion about my seating arrangement." The first-class cabin fell completely silent. The only sounds were the aircraft's mechanical hums and the barely audible whispers from Emma's live-stream viewers. 6,200 people were now watching in real time. David Chen Williams' voice carried clearly through the phone speaker. "What kind of issue, son? Are you safe?" Marcus looked directly at Sarah. Her hand was pressed against her mouth, and her eyes had gone wide with recognition. Tom Jenkins stood frozen, his face cycling through several shades of red. "I'm safe, Dad, but I've been asked to leave first class. The flight attendant believes my boarding pass is fraudulent." A pause, then David's voice, carefully controlled. "I see. Marcus, can you please put the flight attendant on the phone?" Sarah shook her head frantically and backed away. I can't. I don't—" Dr. Park leaned forward in his seat. "Did he just say his father is David Chen Williams?" Officer Martinez was connecting the dots. David Chen Williams wasn't just any executive. He was the CEO of Meridian Airlines, the same airline whose plane they were currently sitting in. Emma's live stream exploded with comments. "Holy shit, his dad is the CEO. This is about to get insane. She's so fired. Screen record everything. This is going viral." Marcus held the phone toward Sarah. "The flight attendant's name is Sarah Mitchell. She's right here." David's voice remained professionally calm, but there was steel underneath. "Sarah Mitchell, please take the phone." Sarah's hands trembled as she accepted the device. "Mr. Chen Williams, sir, we didn't know—" "Didn't know what, Ms. Mitchell?" The question hung in the air like a sword. Sarah's mouth opened and closed without producing sound. "Didn't know what?" David repeated, his voice slightly sharper. "We didn't know he was your son, sir." "I see. So you would have treated any other black teenager the same way?" The question was precise, surgical, and devastating. Sarah realized she had just admitted to discriminatory behavior in front of 6,400 live-stream viewers and 2 security officers. Tom Jenkins stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation. "Mr. Chen Williams, sir, this is Tom Jenkins, gate supervisor. We were following standard verification procedures for suspicious boarding situations. Mr. Jenkins, please explain what was suspicious about my son's boarding pass." Tom's answer came too quickly. "Well, sir, it's unusual to see someone his age in first class, and—" "Stop!" David's voice cut through the explanation. "Mr. Jenkins, are you suggesting that young black men cannot afford first-class seats?" Emma's phone was now too hot to hold comfortably, but she didn't dare stop recording. The viewer count hit 7,100. Marcus stood quietly, watching the adults around him grapple with the consequences of their assumptions. He pulled out his school ID and held it up for everyone to see. Marcus Chen Williams, Student Body President, Harvard Westlake School. Harvard Westlake, one of the most prestigious private schools in California. Tuition, $47,000 per year. Officer Martinez examined the ID. "Son, why didn't you show this earlier?" Marcus's response was measured and thoughtful. "Officer, I shouldn't need to prove my worth with a private school ID. My boarding pass and driver's license should have been sufficient." David's voice came through the speaker again. "Marcus, are you recording this conversation?" "Yes, Dad, and so are several other passengers. This is being live-streamed to over 7,000 people." "Good. Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Jenkins, I want to be very clear about what just happened. You discriminated against my son based on your assumptions about his race and age. You did this publicly, in front of witnesses, and it's now been broadcast to thousands of people. Sarah was crying. Sir, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Mrs. Mitchell, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to assume that a black teenager couldn't legitimately occupy a first-class seat. You chose to question documents you knew were valid. You chose to call security rather than verify his identity properly. Tom's radio crackled urgently. Meridian 447, ground control, final call for departure clearance. David heard the radio call. Mr. Jenkins, please tell ground control that this aircraft is not departing until I resolve this situation personally. Tom's voice cracked. Sir, we'll miss our slot. The passengers will wait, Mr. Jenkins. This aircraft is grounded until further notice. Emma whispered into her live stream. The CEO just grounded the entire plane. 8,000 people are watching this happen live. Marcus pulled up his text messages and showed the screen to Officer Martinez. The conversation history with Dad showed months of normal father-son communications. Flight confirmations, dinner plans, basketball game schedules. Dr. Park shook his head in amazement. In 30 years of flying, I've never seen anything like this. Marcus's phone buzzed with another call. The screen showed Mom. Dr. Lisa Chen Williams. He declined the call and sent a quick text. Everything's fine. We'll call you soon. Officer Martinez had been taking notes throughout the encounter. Son, for my report. When did you realize you'd need to call your father? Marcus considered the question carefully. Officer, I hoped I wouldn't need to. I wanted to believe that showing proper identification would be enough. But when security was called for what was clearly discriminatory treatment, I knew this needed to be addressed at the highest level. Sarah was still holding the phone, David's voice waiting for a response. Mitchell, are you there? Yes, sir, I'm here. I'm currently in Chicago, about to board my own flight to Denver. I'll be landing approximately 20 minutes after your scheduled arrival. Ms. Mitchell and Mr. Jenkins, you will both meet me in the executive conference room immediately upon my arrival. Do you understand? Yes, sir, they both responded. Marcus, I want you to take your seat in first class. Officer Martinez, please ensure that my son is treated with the same respect and courtesy extended to every other passenger. Officer Martinez nodded. Absolutely, sir. The live stream viewer count reached 8,900. Comments flooded the screen faster than anyone could read them. Screenshots and video clips were spreading across every social media platform. Twitter was exploding. At breaking news, Meridian Airlines CEO grounds plane after staff discriminate against his son. At TMZ, exclusive, airline discrimination caught on live stream. At the Shade Room, CEO's son exposes airline racism in real time. Marcus looked at Sarah, who was still crying. His voice was gentle but firm. Miss Mitchell, I want you to know that I don't take any pleasure in this situation. I hope we can both learn from it. Sarah nodded through her tears. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. Dr. Park began applauding slowly. Other first-class passengers joined in. The applause spread to economy class as word traveled through the cabin. Emma ended her live stream with a final comment. 9,000 people just witnessed history. This young man handled discrimination with more grace and dignity than most adults could manage. Tom's radio crackled one final time. Ground control to Meridian 407. CEO office has contacted tower. You are cleared to depart when ready. Marcus took his seat in 2A. He pulled out his laptop and opened his economics homework. Just another Tuesday evening for a high school senior. But for Meridian Airlines and for the 9,000 people who witnessed this encounter, everything had changed. Denver International Airport. Tumac Air Force Riverside Base. Special Counsel Investigative. Mountain Time. David Shen Williams arrived at Denver International Airport exactly 19 minutes after Flight 447 touched down. His own flight from Chicago had been delayed by weather, giving him additional time to review the incident reports that had flooded his inbox during the 2-hour journey. The Meridian Airlines executive conference room occupied a corner of the airport's administrative wing. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the tarmac where planes moved like illuminated insects against the dark Colorado sky. Sarah Mitchell sat at the far end of the mahogany conference table, her uniform wrinkled from stress and her eyes red from crying. Tom Jenkins sat 3 seats away, maintaining professional distance from the flight attendant whose actions had created this crisis. Also present were Jennifer Walsh, Meridian's General Counsel, Michael Torres, VP of Customer Relations, and Dr. Patricia Williams, the company's newly hired Chief Diversity Officer. David entered the room at 9:52 p.m. He was a tall man in his early 50s, with salt and pepper hair and the bearing of someone who had spent 3 decades building one of America's most successful airlines. His calm demeanor masked the controlled fury that had been building since his son's phone call. He set his briefcase on the table and opened his laptop. The screen displayed a real-time social media monitoring dashboard. The metrics were devastating. Meridian discrimination, 47,000 tweets in 3 hours. Instagram posts, 12,000 and climbing. TikTok videos, 156 different clips. 2.3 million total views. Stock price, down 4.2% in after-mock trading. Mrs. Mitchell, Mr. Jenkins, thank you for waiting. David's voice carried the professional courtesy of a CEO, but the underlying tension was unmistakable. I've reviewed the preliminary reports. I've watched the live stream footage. I've read the social media response. He clicked to the next screen. These are the numbers that matter right now. In the past 3 hours, Meridian Airlines has been mentioned negatively 73,000 times across all social platforms. Our customer service hotline has received 1,200 calls, with 87% expressing concern about discriminatory practices. Jennifer Walsh, the General Counsel, opened her legal folder. David, from a liability perspective, we're looking at potential federal civil rights violations under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, specifically Section 1981. The Department of Transportation also has jurisdiction under the Air Carrier Access. What are the financial implications? David asked. Conservative estimate for a discrimination lawsuit of this magnitude, with video evidence and viral social media coverage, $200,000 to $500,000 in settlements. That's assuming we can avoid a jury trial. Michael Torres leaned forward. The brand damage is harder to quantify, but our preliminary analysis suggests we could see a 2-3% reduction in bookings over the next 6 months. That translates to approximately $45 million, 0 cents, in lost revenue. Dr. Williams consulted her tablet. David, I've been tracking similar incidents across the airline industry. Companies that handle these situations poorly see long-term reputation damage. United Airlines' market value dropped $1,400 million, 0 cents, after their passenger removal incident in 2017. David turned to face Sarah and Tom directly. I want to understand exactly what happened. Ms. Mitchell, walk me through your decision-making process. Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. Mr. Chen Williams, when I saw your son boarding first class, my first thought was that he must be lost. It was automatic. I didn't think about it. You didn't think about it? David repeated. Ms. Mitchell, you've been with Meridian for 8 years. In that time, how many passengers have you questioned about fraudulent boarding passes? I didn't. Sarah hesitated. I'm not sure. Jennifer Walsh consulted her laptop. Ms. Mitchell, according to your employment records, you filed 0 fraud reports in 8 years. This was your first. The silence in the room was profound. Tom Jenkins cleared his throat. Sir, if I may. When Sarah called for supervisor support, I made the decision to involve security based on standard protocols. Mr. Jenkins, what protocols specifically require security involvement for boarding pass verification? Tom's face reddened. Well, sir, when passengers become argumentative or uncooperative. Mr. Jenkins, did you review the security footage from the gate area? No, sir. David clicked his laptop again. The wall monitor displayed airport security camera footage. This is the CCTV recording from Gate B7. Please watch your interaction with my son. The footage showed Marcus standing calmly, speaking respectfully, and presenting identification multiple times. At no point did he raise his voice or make aggressive gestures. Mr. Jenkins, can you point to any moment where my son was argumentative or uncooperative? Tom stared at the screen. No, sir, I cannot. Dr. Williams opened her presentation folder. David, I'd like to share some industry data. According to the Department of Transportation, discrimination complaints against airlines have increased 23% over the past 2 years. Meridian has received 47 complaints this quarter alone. That's 340% above industry average for airlines our size. David's expression hardened. 47 complaints this quarter? Michael Torres nodded grimly. Most were handled quietly through customer service channels, small compensations, vouchers, written apologies. How much have we paid in discrimination settlements this year? Jennifer Walsh consulted her files. $127,000, 0 cents in direct settlements. Another $340,000, 0 cents in vouchers and compensation packages. Nearly $500,000, David said slowly. And that's just the financial cost. It doesn't include the reputation damage, the lost customers, the federal scrutiny. He stood and walked to the window overlooking the tarmac. Gentlemen, ladies, I built this airline on the principle that travel should be accessible and dignified for everyone. What happened to my son tonight represents a fundamental failure of our values. Sarah spoke up. Mr. Chen Williams, I know I was wrong. I want to make this right. David turned back to the table. Miss Mitchell, making this right requires more than apologies. It requires systematic change. He clicked to his final presentation slide. Meridian Airlines Dignity Standards Initiative. Effective immediately, Meridian Airlines will implement the following changes. First, zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory behavior. Any employee found to have discriminated against passengers based on race, age, gender, or other protected characteristics will face immediate termination. Second, mandatory monthly bias training for all customer-facing employees. This program will be developed in partnership with the NAACP and other civil rights organizations. Third, real-time discrimination reporting system. Passengers can report incidents through our mobile app, with guaranteed response within 24 hours. Fourth, quarterly bias audits conducted by external diversity consultants. Results will be published publicly. Fifth, body cameras for all customer service interactions involving passenger verification or security issues. Dr. Williams nodded approvingly. David, these measures go beyond industry standards. They're comprehensive and enforceable. David looked at Sarah and Tom. You both have a choice to make. Option A, accept immediate termination and industry blacklisting. Option B, undergo intensive bias training, issue public apologies, and accept 1-year probation with quarterly performance reviews. Sarah was crying again. Sir, I choose option B. I want to learn. I want to do better. Tom nodded reluctantly. Option B, sir. Jennifer Walsh made notes in her legal pad. David, what about the broader response? The media attention, the social media backlash. Tomorrow morning, I'm holding a press conference. I'll announce the Dignity Standards Initiative, acknowledge our failures, and commit to being the industry leader in inclusive travel. We're also establishing a $2 million zero-cents fund for discrimination prevention programs across the airline industry. Michael Torres looked up from his tablet. David, the stock price is already recovering. After Hammer's trading shows a 1.8% uptick. Investors are responding positively to decisive leadership. David closed his laptop. The stock price is irrelevant if we're not doing right by our customers. Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Jenkins, you'll report to Dr. Williams on Monday morning to begin your training programs. He gathered his papers. One final point. My son handled this situation with more grace and maturity than grown adults with decades of professional experience. He could have humiliated you both publicly. Instead, he chose dignity and education over revenge. David paused at the conference room door. That's the standard I expect from every Meridian Airlines employee going forward. The room fell silent as the CEO left. Through the windows, aircraft continued their nightly ballet of arrivals and departures. But for Meridian Airlines, the industry, and the thousands of people who had witnessed the evening's events, the landscape of airline travel had permanently shifted. 6 months later, the Meridian Airlines training facility in Phoenix buzzed with activity. Sarah Mitchell stood at the front of a classroom filled with 47 customer service representatives from across the airline's network. Her role had transformed from flight attendant to senior diversity training coordinator, a position created specifically for her after she completed the most comprehensive bias education program in airline industry history. Before we begin today's session, Sarah said to the assembled group, I want to share a story about the worst mistake I ever made professionally. She clicked to the first slide of her presentation, a photo of Flight 447's first-class cabin. 6 months ago, I made assumptions about a passenger based entirely on his race and age. Those assumptions cost our company nearly $2 million. 0 cents in lost revenue. Created a public relations crisis and, most importantly, caused real harm to a young man who deserved better. The training program Sarah now led was the cornerstone of Meridian's Dignity Standards Initiative. Every customer-facing employee underwent 40 hours of bias training annually. The curriculum included implicit bias recognition, de-escalation techniques, cultural competency, and real-world scenario practice. Marcus Chen Williams, now 18 and a freshman at Stanford University, had become an unexpected advocate for travel industry reform. His Dignity in Travel Foundation had partnered with 7 major airlines to implement similar anti-discrimination programs. The foundation's mobile app, which allowed passengers to report discriminatory incidents in real time, had been downloaded 340,000 times. Dr. Patricia Williams reviewed the quarterly audit results in her executive office. The numbers told a remarkable story of transformation. Discrimination complaints, down 73% from the previous year. Customer satisfaction scores, up 18% across all demographics. Employee bias training completion rate, 100%. Federal DOT commendations. 3, for industry-leading inclusive practices. The real-time reporting system had revolutionized how Meridian handled passenger concerns. Average response time to discrimination complaints, 11 minutes. Resolution rate, 94%. Most importantly, the number of complaints had dropped dramatically as employees became more aware of their unconscious biases. Tom Jenkins had not fared as well as Sarah. His probationary period revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior spanning several years. After failing his 3rd quarterly review, he was terminated. The airline industry's shared database of problematic employees ensured he would never work in aviation again. Emma Rodriguez, the passenger who live-streamed the original incident, had parlayed her viral video into a career as a social justice documentarian. Her full-length documentary, Seat 2A, A Story of Dignity and Change, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and was later acquired by Netflix. The film featured extensive interviews with Marcus, his parents, Sarah, and dozens of other passengers who had experienced airline discrimination. It won the Audience Award for Best Documentary and sparked congressional hearings on discrimination in the travel industry. Meridian Airlines corporate headquarters, 1 year later. David Chen Williams stood before the company's board of directors, presenting the annual Diversity and Inclusion Report. The transformation had exceeded every expectation. Ladies and gentlemen, 12 months ago, Meridian Airlines faced a crisis that could have destroyed our reputation permanently. Instead, we chose to see it as an opportunity for fundamental change. He clicked to a slide showing financial performance metrics. Our commitment to dignity and inclusion has produced measurable results. Customer loyalty is at an all-time high. Our Net Promoter Score has increased by 31 points. Most significantly, we've attracted 2.3 million new customers who specifically chose Meridian because of our inclusive policies. Board member Janet Crawford raised her hand. David, what's been the total investment in the Dignity Standards Initiative? $8,700,000, 0 cents in the first year. Training programs, technology development, external audits, and the Dignity Fund. However, the return on investment has been substantial. Revenue increased by $47 million, 0 cents, directly attributable to our enhanced reputation for inclusive service. The initiative had attracted attention far beyond the airline industry. Harvard Business School developed a case study based on Meridian's response to the discrimination incident. The case was now taught in MBA programs worldwide as an example of crisis management and values-driven leadership. Marcus had been invited to speak at the Harvard Business School case study launch. At 19, he commanded the attention of professors and students with his insights on dignity, leadership, and social change. The most important lesson from that evening on Flight 447, Marcus told the Harvard audience, wasn't about discrimination or corporate responsibility. It was about the power of remaining calm in the face of injustice. Anger would have felt satisfying in the moment, but it wouldn't have created lasting change. His Stanford economics professor had used the Meridian transformation as a real-world example of how social consciousness could drive business success. Marcus's senior thesis, Economic Incentives for Corporate Social Responsibility in the Service Industry, cited his own experience as a primary case study. The broader impact rippled throughout the aviation industry. Within 18 months of the Flight 447 incident, 12 major airlines had implemented similar anti-discrimination programs. The Federal Aviation Administration issued new guidelines for bias training and passenger rights protection. Sarah Mitchell's transformation had become legendary within Meridian. Her training sessions were so effective that other airlines began requesting her expertise. She had been invited to speak at the International Air Transport Association's annual conference, where she would address 500 airline executives about unconscious bias in customer service. The hardest part, Sarah often told trainees, wasn't admitting I was wrong. It was understanding how my assumptions had been shaped by years of unconscious bias. But that understanding opened the door to real change. Marcus's younger sister, Zoe, had started high school and was already following in her brother's footsteps as a student activist. She led her school's diversity committee and frequently referenced her brother's experience when discussing dignity and respect in educational settings. The Chen Williams family had used their platform to advocate for broader social justice issues. Dr. Lisa Chen Williams, Marcus's mother and a renowned pediatric surgeon, spoke regularly about bias in healthcare settings. The family's commitment to systemic change extended far beyond aviation. Marcus's Stanford dormitory, present day. Marcus sat at his desk, reviewing applications for the Dignity in Travel Foundation's College Scholarship Program. The foundation now awarded $50,000 0 cents annually to students pursuing careers in social justice, business ethics, or civil rights law. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Mitchell. Marcus just finished training session 127. Every time I tell our story, I'm reminded of how much we've both grown. Thank you for choosing grace over anger that night. Marcus smiled and typed back, "Thank you for proving that people can change. Your work is inspiring a new generation of airline professionals." The ripple effects continued to spread. A documentary crew was following 3 other passengers who had experienced airline discrimination, examining how their cases were handled under the new industry standards that Marcus's experience had helped create. Dr. Park, the physician who had defended Marcus on Flight 447, had become a vocal advocate for passenger rights. He served on the advisory board of the Dignity in Travel Foundation and frequently wrote op-eds about the intersection of healthcare and social justice. Emma Rodriguez's career had flourished beyond her wildest expectations. Her production company had secured funding for a documentary series about everyday heroes who create social change. Marcus would be featured in the premiere episode, which would air during Black History Month. 2 years later, the legacy. Marcus Chen Williams graduated from Stanford with highest honors in economics and social justice. His senior thesis became the foundation for federal legislation requiring bias training in all transportation industries. The Dignity in Transit Act passed Congress with bipartisan support and was signed into law by the president in a ceremony attended by Marcus, his family, and Sarah Mitchell. The transformation at Meridian Airlines had become a Harvard Business School case study taught worldwide. David Chen Williams was named CEO of the Year by Forbes for his leadership in corporate social responsibility. The company's stock price had increased 47% since implementing the Dignity Standards Initiative, proving that ethical business practices drive long-term profitability. Sarah Mitchell's journey from discriminatory flight attendant to national diversity advocate demonstrated the power of genuine transformation. She had spoken at 200 conferences, trained 15,000 airline employees, and co-authored a best-selling book, From Bias to Belonging, A Flight Attendant's Journey to Justice. The Dignity in Travel Foundation had expanded internationally. Similar programs now operated in 23 countries, making air travel more inclusive for millions of passengers worldwide. Marcus served as the foundation's youngest ever board chair while pursuing his MBA at Stanford. These touching stories remind us that real-life stories often begin with moments of injustice, but can evolve into Black stories of triumph and systemic change. What started as discrimination against one teenager became a movement that transformed an entire industry. Emma Rodriguez's documentary series had won 3 Emmy Awards and sparked similar reforms in hotels, restaurants, and retail chains. Her production company now focused exclusively on stories of social justice and corporate transformation. Dr. Park had been appointed to the Department of Transportation's Civil Rights Advisory Council. He regularly cited Marcus's case when advocating for stronger passenger protection regulations. The mobile app developed by the Dignity in Travel Foundation had recorded over 50,000 incident reports across all transportation modes. More importantly, the number of incidents had decreased by 68% industry-wide as employees became more aware of their biases. Marcus's Stanford professors had incorporated his experience into multiple courses. His case study was used in classes on leadership, ethics, crisis management, and social entrepreneurship. Students learned that the most powerful response to discrimination isn't anger or revenge. It's systematic change that prevents others from experiencing the same injustice. The aviation industry's transformation had inspired other sectors. Hotels, restaurants, retail chains, and healthcare systems had implemented similar dignity standards. The economic impact was substantial. Companies with strong anti-discrimination policies showed 23% higher customer satisfaction and 31% better employee retention rates. Today, every major airline displays dignity standards prominently in their customer service policies. Flight attendants undergo monthly bias training. Passengers have multiple channels for reporting discrimination. Most importantly, the culture of aviation has shifted toward inclusion and respect. Marcus, now 21, continues his advocacy work while completing his MBA. His story has inspired thousands of young people to pursue careers in social justice. His father's airline remains the industry leader in inclusive practices, proving that doing the right thing is also good business. Sarah Mitchell was promoted to Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at Meridian Airlines. Her team has prevented countless incidents of discrimination through proactive training and cultural change. She often tells new employees, "Our job isn't just to get passengers from point A to point B. It's to ensure everyone travels with dignity." The story that began with a discriminatory assumption on Flight 447 has become a permanent part of aviation history. It's taught in business schools, cited in congressional hearings, and remembered every time an airline employee chooses respect over bias. Have you witnessed discrimination in travel or other service industries? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story could spark the next wave of positive change. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to see that one person's courage can transform entire systems. Hit subscribe for more real-life stories that prove ordinary people can create extraordinary change. Remember, dignity isn't negotiable, respect isn't optional, and change is always possible when we choose justice over silence. What would you have done in Marcus's situation? How can we all contribute to making travel and life more inclusive for everyone? Let us know in the comments.